Welcome to the Young Hearts Run Free podcast. Hilary and Billy Yang. Hilary, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having us. It's so nice to meet you guys.
Thank you. And Billy, how are you?
I'm a tad under the weather, but I'm in recovery mode, but otherwise doing fantastic. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. It's our pleasure to have you both here. And we've got lots to speak about, predominantly your recent UK trip. Lots of stuff. I think it was a 10, 12-minute video, but it's probably given us about 23 questions that we could ask just from watching that. But
Fire
um,
away.
yeah, so we'll go with that. But what we always like to do is before um, we set the scene, or we ask our guests to set the scene for our listeners. So, if you don't mind, I'm going to go ladies first. Hilary, give us a bit of background to Hilary Yang and what brought you and running to this point.
Oh man. Where to start? I got into running ultra marathons in 2013 was my first one. Basically a friend of mine told me that I could never run that far, so I naturally signed up for a 50K 2 weeks later, totally untrained, no idea what a gel was, just sort of like threw myself in the deep end. And then crawled my way to the finish line, totally on fumes and thinking it was a sign of weakness to eat during an 8 hour race, you know. Um, but I got through it. I finished, and then I was immediately hooked on running. Just sort of fascinated by the mental side of like what even compelled me to want to run that far, and what kept me going when it'd be so easy to quit. And so that just started this journey. I started working with Gary Robbins, who's quite a well-known coach in Canada, where I come from and where I learned to trail run. And that was when Gary was sort of in the middle of his Barkley Marathons attempts. So that was really an interesting insight into another side of ultra running. And through that journey, that also sort of opened up another path, which has become my career, which was the photography side of running. And basically, I was just out in these incredible places in BC and exploring this terrain and taking photos, and it just never does it justice, which I'm sure you guys can appreciate. It's always very unsatisfying when you take a photo with your iPhone and it's just like, oh, so I started carrying a camera with me. I taught myself to use it, started using my friends as guinea pigs, and then that just sort of opened up this whole world where brands started reaching out. They were looking for female photographers. There wasn't a lot of women. There still isn't a lot of women who are willing to carry all the camera gear and do the kind of physical things you need to do to be in these places. And so it's really been incredible. I think over the last decade, I've been able to merge the two passions. And on the running side, I've been able to run and race all over the world and have these cool experiences. But then I'm also able to tell a lot of stories about other people's running journeys from behind the camera lens. And really that's like changed my whole life. And it's how I met my husband, Billy. And it's just, yeah, kind of incredible. So it's a huge part of my life in many ways. That's the very short version of my story.
Thank you very much. Brilliant segue as well. Almost like we planned that.
I know, just teed it up for you guys.
Yeah. Billy, can you give us the same the same type of answer, your
Yeah.
background, what brought you, but also you can maybe share this one. What Hilary's mentioned, that's what brought you together. But when and where did that happen?
Yeah. I'll try to be as eloquent as Hillary generally is and always is. I pretty much led a meaningless, purposeless life for the large part of my until I was about 28, and then I made a shift in my life, you know, like smoked for 12 years at that point, made a shift in my life to get healthier. And I remember a couple of years into that journey, a friend of mine at the gym suggested we run a half marathon. And at that point, I thought it was the craziest thing in the world to run 13.1 miles for fun. But lo and behold, we did it. We trained together, ran that race, and I just remember towards the finish line, I just had, I guess, what's commonly referred to as a runner's high, and I felt weightless, blissful, even a little emotional. And I finished that race in a unremarkable time, but I just kind of wanted to keep the momentum of endurance running going, and signed up for a full marathon about a month after the LA marathon, and ran that race. And it was like pursuing, as most people are wont to do, just how do I improve race to race. But then the boredom of chasing that kind of set in, and I was like, well, there has to be something more to this. And I always knew about trail running because of the influences of somebody like Dean Karnazes, who was a huge influence at that point. And I wanted to dip my toes into trail running, but I was very intimidated. But there was this group of older gentlemen and women called the Trail Runners Club in Los Angeles. And one day I just decided to take a leap. And I remember it was like March of 2008. And we went on this run and just completely opened my eyes. I actually referred to this particular part of LA as like it was like I was like transported to somewhere in Scotland. LA is not very green for most part of the year, but for whatever reason, that particular springtime, it was popping green everywhere as far as eyes can see. And I remember like very distinctly being in this grassy field where it was just green all around, and I just could not believe a place like this existed, let alone just like a few minutes from where I call home in LA. So from then on, I was hooked, and then I discovered ultra marathons and pursued that. Ran my first 50K. Didn't necessarily love it, but saw it as a challenge and wanted to continue to improve. And more so than the distance and the challenge, I found this community, this hub of people who are just hanging out after the race and cracking open a beer and eating chili and exchanging war stories. And I just absolutely loved it. So it was mainly the community that drew me in. And then the storytelling kind of came about accidentally when, it's like, to get out for a run day in and day out, or like sack yourself up for a race, it requires some effort. It's not something like my other passion is food, and like you don't need a whole lot of motivation to to eat really delicious cuisine. But with running, it always requires that initial bit of motivation. And I was like, especially at that point, there wasn't a whole lot of content that would really fire me up for a race or for a run. So I just kind of reverse engineered that instinct of like, maybe I can create something out there that can tell a story that would really fire people up and get to the heart of what I love about this sport, both from a effort standpoint to the community to the beauty of nature. So that was when I really started to get into filmmaking, and clearly left a mark and gained some traction there. And then it is through the said community where I decided to, like leverage whatever bit of notoriety I've had to give back to the community. And I set up this trail run, this community trail run in March of 2019 on Earth Day. And Hilary just happened to be in town in LA visiting her friend from Canada. And she was in town, and her friend decided to come along, and Hilary and I met that way, just kind of organically. And um yeah, and then I think our relationship really blossomed at Hard Rock when like post COVID, uh we were both like lacking that really the race environment, the communal aspect of it. And that was back in 2021. And we just decided to travel all through Colorado and then a road trip back to California. And yeah, our relationship took off at that point.
Awesome. Thank you so much, both of you, for a quite brilliant introduction that also generates more questions. Stephen.
Oh, lots of questions floating about in my head, but you've touched a little bit on your profession, so to speak, your photography, Hilary, and your storytelling, I suppose, Billy. But if we were to just think about your running, your most cherished running memory, or the best day out, the race, what would it be, Hilary?
Um, I think, I mean, running is interesting. There's sort of racing and like the experience you get from racing, but then there's also so many of my experiences that are my favorites are not races at all. They're just sort of these adventures that you share with friends. But that said, I do have a race that really sticks out in my mind. And it's called Fat Dog 70 Miler. And it's in British Columbia. It's very rugged and remote. There's no cell phone coverage. It's, you're sort of like right out in the wilderness. And I had trained for it hard. I was working with Gary, and I got in a car accident about 4 weeks before the race. And I was completely like, I was locked up. I couldn't move my head from side to side. And so, I had to start my taper early. I sort of just didn't run until the race started. But I really was committed to lining up for it because I trained so hard for it. So I showed up at this race with the lowest of expectations, just very grateful for being there. And I remember it snowed in August because we were in the mountains, and why not, and it just sort of was one of those days. And as I went through the day, I just felt so strong and so grateful. And I was talking to all the volunteers, and I didn't actually realize it, but I was moving up throughout the race. And when I crossed the finish line, they told me that I'd won, which was one of those things where it's like pretty fun when you don't even know kind of what's going on in the race and you're just so wrapped up in the day. But the coolest part was I got this runner's high in the last 10 kilometers of the race, and I had this out of body experience where I could like see myself running through this meadow. And I felt like I was like weightless, and I could hear myself like whooping and hollering, but it was almost like I was observing my body, and I just like, it was incredible. So I ended up getting a tattoo on my leg after that. I actually have the chemical compound for the runner's high, which is my nod to that experience. And just, I think regardless of outcome, like it was really cool to win and to have that. And that was the first sort of race that I'd done well at. And, I remember calling Gary, and I remember him dropping the phone. He was so shocked, which I don't know if I should be offended that my coach was that shocked, but it was a cute moment. But I think it was more to the point that I learned a lot about, how you go into something, the intention you have behind it. And I think just being out there and being grateful to run it all. I mean, I wish I could bottle that, because I feel like so much of the time we set ourselves up for failure because we expect so much from ourselves, and then we don't know how to handle it when it doesn't go well. But I always come back to that moment of like, if I can just stay present and I can just be grateful for the experience, you never know what you're going to get out of the day. So, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and no,
Yeah,
go
go
ahead.
for it,
Sorry.
Billy. No,
Yeah, I mean,
I want to see the tattoo. That's all I'm thinking.
yeah.
The chemical compound for runner's high.
I get a lot of questions about it, a lot of guesses,
bet.
most of them weird.
Yeah, Billy.
Yeah, for me, I was pondering this as Hilary was talking, and as she started out talking about community and non-race environments, like that, that's really what draws me in, the community aspect of it. And I remember, going back to COVID when races and events were canceled, and we just all had this lack of purpose and something to train for. But more importantly, like we just missed community, being around each other. That's just, there's something about that. And I made a video referencing this about the impact of good relationships and good and healthy relationships in your life. And the memories that you create and cultivate as a result. And that is really when I think about races, that's really what I think about the most. Less the scenery and how great or not so great I performed, but it's like who was along for the ride, who was a part of my journey, and I think those memories pop out more than others. And I remember just going back to COVID when all that was canceled. I had a friend of mine. We were chatting and we were like, like there's no races on the calendar, but I would still like to put something, once everything sort of loosened up, of like, how do we get that back? And so, born out of that became this annual event. I mean, we kind of generically call ourselves the Adventure Club, where every year we put something on the calendar. And, a handful of people, very select people, but really good people, and, across all ages, abilities. And we just gather someplace cool annually. Year one was a local trail called the Backbone Trail, which runs about a little over 100 kilometers long, point to point. And we did that. Most of us didn't finish, but that was beside the point. And we all had a good time just hanging out in the same house, just really enjoying each other's companies. And then the year after that, we put the Grand Canyon rim to rim to rim on the calendar. Joshua Tree. This year we have what do we have coming up? We have the Cactus of Clouds, which is a local Southern California route where you go from basically sea level all the way to the top of Mount San Jacinto, which is above 10,000 feet. And it's less about the adventure, sure, but it's more about the relationships that you build and cultivate, the before and after of hanging out. And for me, that's what really stands out. And I'm in a very fortunate position to be able to do this with an actual guided company too. With Vagabond Trails, every year I host the Tour de Mont Blanc, and that's always a treasure memory from just, I mean, the obvious, like, awe-inspiring views and mountain range that you get to run around, but it's really the people that you meet and share these adventures with that really makes that memory special and cherished. So yeah, I would say I can throw a dart at any one of those as a cherished memory, but at the end of the day, they all kind of like stand out more than any race memory, anything like that.
Brilliant. You've both mentioned people. How important, Hilary, come to you first. How important is that running community to you?
I mean, I think it's really the thing that keeps you invested in trail running. I mean, I think at some point I went kind of crazy with races when I first got into it. You feel like you want to do it all, experience it all, but then at some point you kind of slow down and you're a little more choosy maybe. And it really comes down to, like Billy was saying, connecting with people, having those shared experiences. And I mean, even before we met, like that was also very much top of mind for me and something that was important to me to cultivate. I did a couple really fun trips that were like all women's adventure weekends, and we would do like an unofficial relay where we would go point to point, like do like a 300-kilometer route over a weekend, and we would all just jump in for segments and but treat it as just this like big adventure that had no real, like, we weren't trying to get an FKT. We were eating tacos and drinking tequila out of water bottles along the way. It was more just about having those bonding experiences. And I think, yeah, it's really important. It's something that together we really are intentional around. And I think the people that are drawn to trail running tend to be really good people. The people that want this for their life tend to be people that we also connect with and want to invest in. And I think you get so much more out of the sport when you put that time into it, and you don't just show up at a race and leave. But whether it's volunteering and meeting people that way, whatever it is, I think just that adds so much, to our lives, and it's really important.
It was quite telling a couple of years ago when we had our wedding. We had a smallish wedding, smallish to medium-sized wedding, a little over 100 people. And outside of family, I remember starting to look around and scanning the people and like, oh, these are all our running friends, save for, a couple of childhood friends. So I thought it was quite telling.
Brilliant. It does. It definitely does. So I've got a side question that's been in my head. You both spoke about food. I think you both like food as well. Who's the main chef/cook in the Yang household?
Ooh, probably me. Although I have to say, Billy cooks a really good steak. Yeah, we have our different strengths. I think I do more of the like day-to-day meals, but as Billy will often say, a salad is not dinner. That's rabbit food. What are you doing? So I think maybe we have different definitions of what qualifies.
I am superior at selecting restaurants. So I do my research, I look at reviews, I look at photos, I look at price point, and I feel like I am definitely the more talented, or maybe I just put more work into actually selecting the places
You
where
just
we
spend
dine
more
at.
time on TikTok. That's all it is.
Yeah.
He's like,
Another-
oh, I'm doing
Research.
research, babe.
Yeah. Another perfect segue. You're building us up, Stephen. take us to the UK trip.
Well, that was going to be our main talking point, was your
Yeah.
recent trip to the UK. And well, John's already touched on your the YouTube video that you put out on it, the 10-11 minutes worth, and it certainly piqued my interest. I've got a page full of sort of questions, and I looked down them, and there's not many running related ones, but that's pretty normal for us, so that's okay. And our listeners are pretty used to not having running content, because it's just a sort of cultural view on some things that's also always quite interesting. A first trip to the UK for you, Billy?
So I've connected a whole bunch of times through Heathrow, but it was my actual, like boots on the ground, exploring London and the UK. Yeah, a proper trip there, and absolutely blew me away. And yeah, many people told us that, maybe you kind of lucked out with the weather. London's usually not that sunny and nice, and I think the rest of the trip was also like, like we definitely had our rain, pockets of rain here and there, but otherwise we had, pretty nice weather. But yeah, I loved it. I think I got a tad overzealous and overambitious to see as much of it as I could. In fact, our original itinerary had Ireland in there, and then Hilary looked at me and she's like, no, we're not. We only have a finite period of time between the Love Trails Festival and we were heading to the Dolomites immediately after. And so we had about, I want to say like 4.5, 5 days of exploration to do. So that's why it was so like jam packed. Otherwise, we would have like taken more time in Isle of Skye, Edinburgh, like Lake District, all these like lovely places. But we said we're going to do this. We had this itinerary and we were just going to go. And, like sampled all the fine, Scotch, local whiskeys. The food was, like just absolutely chef's kiss. I feel like UK gets a bad rap when it comes to food, but we had a great time eating our way through. And yeah, just from a culinary perspective, the culture, the landscape, it was just all beautiful. And I don't know how we can top it on our next trip back, but believe me, there will be another trip back, because I feel like we just scratched the surface.
Wet your whistle, as we say.
Yeah,
that
for
trip.
sure.
4.5, 5 days. Now, you covered a fair bit in mileage in a little Toyota Aygo, I'm pretty sure I saw in your video, a little rental car.
Yeah.
Did you
What do
drive?
call it? The Orange
Sorry?
Boogie. Was it Orange Boogie you called it?
Orange Booger, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you drive from London north in that? Did you didn't get internal
Yeah.
flights?
We drove west to the South Wales area where the festival was, and then drove north to the Lake District, and then to Portree, Isle of Skye, and then down to Edinburgh, where we flew into Italy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Have you run any of races in the UK? Because I mean, the places that you were.
Yeah, I haven't. She has, right, babe?
Yeah, I've been to the UK. So my family are actually Scottish. Immigrated to Canada kind of 2 generations ago, but I still have family in Scotland. So I do feel like I have a kinship. But I got the chance to go to the UK with Innovate, which I think they're based in the Lake District. And that was in 2017. They sort of had a weekend where they invited a bunch of journalists and media over, and we got to tour their headquarters. And then they gave us a crash course on felt running, and sort of just taught you to just hurtle downhill, take the brakes off completely. And then they signed us up for this, I think it was like a 12K race. I don't know. It was in Keswick. It was called the Skiddaw Classic. And we basically go from the pub to the top of Skiddaw and then back down to the pub, which was great. And, ends in a potluck. And, it was like classic, I think, English weather, where it like starts out nice at the bottom. And then by the time we got up to Skiddaw, it was like like hailing sideways and I couldn't see anything, and you're like battling the winds. And then on the way down, it was just hilarious. It's one of my favorite running memories and stories, and photos actually. But I was running and I was trying to like imitate all these guys that are just like throwing themselves down the mountain. And as I'm going down, I toe picked on something. And I just, you feel yourself, but the momentum is just like pushing you forward. And so I kept going as I was trying to windmill my way out of this fall. Didn't work. And I hit the ground. I managed to kind of steer towards a ditch. I hit the ground and I bounced kind of like Superman style. And I just like used the momentum to keep going. I just sort of like let it launch me back up. And I remember thinking to myself, like, oh my God, I'm so glad like nobody saw that. And I didn't realize that the race photographer, a guy named Steven Wilson, and I follow him on Facebook still, and he like photographs a lot of the local races there, but he was like perched right in front of where I fell, and he caught the whole thing on camera, and he got this great photo of me in the air in the Superman, full body Superman. And that photo ended up being the centerfold for Fell Running magazine that year in 2017. So that's my claim to fame with Fell Running.
Yeah, before we started recording, you guys mentioned you needed a couple of photo assets. That should be the one that you send over to us. So.
My most glamorous moment.
that would be cool. That would be cool. And it also means that like you embellish the story, and I was like that. Well, I wish we had photo evidence here. Yeah, we have got photo evidence. So
we got the whole thing, the whole sequence. Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be remiss of us, or I would not forgive myself at this point, to mention the West Highland Way race that takes place in Scotland from Mulgai.
Already, John?
Yeah.
You can't keep quiet.
Like a caged tiger waiting for this moment. It goes from Mulgai to Fort William, 96 miles on the West Highland Way. Some magnificent trails all the way up through Scotland. I think it's made for you, Hilary, to be honest.
I have heard about that one, actually. Yeah. I have heard it's incredible if you get the right weather. What time of year is it held in?
It's on the longest day, so it's towards the end of June.
Towards the last weekend in June.
So they set you up for success.
Yeah. There's only like 1 hour that it's not daylight.
Yeah.
Such is the length of day at that time.
There's actually a couple of comments on the video, the UK trip video, about the Highland Fling and the Devil of the Highlands. I noticed that the comments in there, well, the West Highland Way puts both of these races together. And I've noticed on the West Highland Way's website that international runners are welcomed. So I'm just saying.
Go.
Okay.
We'll be exotic. Thank you for yes, we'll put it on our bucket list. I definitely want to do more races in the UK.
Please
do. There's a potential conflict with Western states, which usually takes place around that time, and where I produced a live video and a live broadcast. But if there's no conflict one year, like sign us up.
We'll get you back in time. We'll get the jet. We'll get you jet.
we will, and it would be also remiss of us to say how much that John and I have both enjoyed all that extra coverage of Western states. By the way, it's
appreciate you,
absolutely awesome, and it's
been a labor of love, but I've
the game.
It's been a whole other element or evolution, if you will, of storytelling in that tight 30-hour period.
Yeah, and it almost, like, if we started talking about it now, we would take up the next hour and a half. So John and I did have a wee team talk beforehand. John wasn't to mention the West Highland Way race. I wasn't to mention your Western States coverage. So
here we are. It's a different episode. That's the welcome back for later.
It is indeed. It is indeed. Now, like I touched on already, it just like 4.5 whirlwind sort of stop in the UK. We just wanted to focus a little bit home in on the Scottish element of it, and I know that you made your way up to the Isle of Skye, which is pretty renowned for its rugged landscape. It's pretty tough trail running conditions, shall we say. There's an ultra marathon on Skye. It goes the length of it actually as well. It's 76 miles, John, I want to say, the Skye Ultra as well, which is well known as a big challenge. You were glamping on Skye as well, I noticed, in a little shack that have become all the rage and the trend over
It
here
was a
recently.
step above glamping. I thought it was like, yeah, I think I referenced that, there were a couple of negative reviews on the place, so we were a bit dubious, but when we
You
got
did
there, it
say
was
he's good at reviews, Hilary. It was well researched.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
it was amazing. We loved it. It was like cute. It was all these little like kind of dome-shaped huts that were just built into the side of the hill, and then the main lodge was like very eco-friendly with a grass roof and big fireplaces and big windows. Like honestly, it was gorgeous. And yeah, like even the drive up there, it's so beautiful. Like coming over that bridge into the Isle of Skye, like we were just blown away. Like it was like all we could do not to stop every 10 minutes and for Billy to get his drone out and just
I feel like we stopped every 10 minutes.
we
Like, pull
did.
over
We
now, pull over
definitely
now.
did.
We need to pull over. Yeah.
Just for listeners' benefit, that Billy did publish a video on his YouTube channel. What's it called? The Window Seat UK 1,000-mile trip, I think, off the top
Yeah.
of my head.
Mm-hmm.
1,000-mile road trip in the UK. It's under Billary Yang's well subscribed YouTube channel, but he's always needing extra subscribers, so make sure you go and do that as well. But it's a great little 10-minute or so of your day spent watching that. It will sync some of the stuff that we've been speaking about as well, I think. But you got to run during your time in Skye as well. You got to get a bit of time out covering some miles.
Yeah, not as much as we would have liked. Like like you referenced, like there was some running in there, but it was mostly sampling the local whiskey, um the local food, and then the rest of the time it was just like we had to get back on the road because we had to go to our next destination. And like we just said, just exercising our willpower to like not stop every single place where we saw beautiful, incredible scenery, which there was quite a lot of.
We did get to run. We did a run out in Curing on Isle of Skye, and that area was just gorgeous. So that felt important for us to fit in, and we like got up early. We were able to go do it, and then I think come back and shower and kind of get back on the road. It was sort of like just fit it in, and it was I think classic Scottish weather where it started out beautiful blue skies, and then by the time we got a few miles out there, all of a sudden it was like dark clouds and raining on us. So I feel like we got the proper experience that we needed. But yeah, honestly, like Skye was just so special. And then from there we went over to Glencoe, and that area was like equally beautiful. So we definitely we snuck in a lot of stuff. We stayed in this old like English, well not English, I guess would be Scottish, but like a bed and breakfast, but like the old kind of I don't know, manor style.
Yeah,
And
like
that was
16th
super fun.
century,
Very proper,
transported back in time. Yeah.
Brilliant. Can I, so popped into my head just now, why did you choose Skye as a location for the park to enjoy or try to do the trail and to include in the video? What was the thinking behind that?
Well, my brother and his fiance were in Scotland a few weeks before we were actually, and they meticulously planned this UK trip, and they had about 2.5 weeks. They were there for the Taylor Swift concert, and then they turned that into a little tour of the UK. I'm sure, like a lot of people did, but honestly, we definitely piggybacked off of their greatest hits, and we had a really busy summer. We were on the road a lot, and so we didn't have a ton of time to plan. So I called him up. I was like, "What do we need to see?" And yeah, he said, stop. I knew about the Lake District from my trip there, so I knew we had to go to the Lake District. But then Isle of Skye, he just highly, highly recommended. So yeah, we're really glad we did it. Honestly, it was just when we were up there going, we need 2 more weeks up here. Just that whole area is so spectacular. Being that far north is really cool too. Like you just feel like you're kind of going up to a different planet. Like you're looking on the map, like you're up near kind of Norway, like you're really up north. And it's just like really fascinating terrain. I'm a rock climber, and so even the climbing around Isle Skye I was sort of like looking at, and like there's just it's a really cool place. So yeah, that's what prompted the trip to Skye.
Wee side note, the West Highland Way Race goes right through Glencoe. Just leave that there.
Say no
Okay.
more.
It's also worth pointing, and when you're on your rock climbing, there's a few famous Munros in Skye, and I'm assuming Munros are mountains over 3,000 foot high, which doesn't seem particularly high, but because of the ruggedness of the terrain, some of them can be quite hard to get up. And the most famous one in Skye is known as the Inaccessible Pinnacle, because you need to rock climb the last, few hundred or whatever bit, and it's always, there's a lot of people do Munro bagging where they go and collect all 282 peaks in Scotland, and that's often the last one because it's the one that needs the most logistics. You can't just do it off the cuff.
It was interesting for me hearing some of the feedback of the locals in the UK. And I've heard this a handful of times, whether in comments or from direct messages, where they haven't explored a lot of these places. I don't know if they just, it was surprising to me. I'm like, if I lived there, I would probably go on this road trip or a short flight like as often as I could as the weather allows, because it's just so stunning and so jaw-droppingly beautiful. And I'm like, so I'm going to talk directly to your UK listeners. If you're living here and then these places are accessible to you, what are you doing sitting on your butts? Like get out there and explore the UK, because there's so much that we would do if we were in closer proximity. Like every weekend, just like get out there and explore a new bit of the UK, because it's, like we said, we were gushing about it, and it was so fun to relive it as I was putting the video together. Just had a blast.
Fantastic.
I think it's changed a wee bit, Billy, since the COVID pandemic. More people are partaking in the outside, but I think you're right. There's a lot of people still got to discover what the UK has got to offer.
Yeah.
I want to take us down south. The video starts with you literally landing and then running past Buckingham Palace. That's what it looks like. You're on the foot. You've got your foot on the ground in London. But then you say you head over to Wales to the Love Trails Festival. Good pal of the show, Lee Campbell. He was down at Love Trails Festival. He's the only person that I really knew that was going. And then it pops up on your video. Do you want to say a bit about the Love Trails Festival?
Yeah, I mean, I think Billy said they've been reaching out. Theo and Neil, who run the Love Trails Festival, are awesome people. Just like a huge passion, I think, for bringing more trail runners into the scene in the UK. And yeah, they'd invited Billy for a few years. It hadn't worked out timing wise, and then they reached out and invited both of us to come over this year, and wanted to just find ways to incorporate what we do. So Billy hosted a film night, and I did a keynote talk on sort of my running career and journey. And then we both were on a couple panels, just sort of like they had lots going on. It's a really cool festival. Honestly, on paper, we were both a little bit confused as to how it would work, because it's sort of like a Coachella music festival meets running festival. About 4,000 people, which is a lot of people, honestly. Like if you think about trail races in North America, tend to be quite small because the permits are quite small. And so you might get 250 or 300 people. It's not like UTMB where you get thousands of people. So even that part was sort of like, wow, there's a lot of runners out here. And then people are camping. They sort of had glamping, or you could bring your van, or you could just camp in a plain old tent, like, sort of like every budget and what you wanted out of the weekend. And yeah, it was so much fun. They had everything from pub runs to beer miles to like serious races. Like I actually jumped into the 26K Golden Trail World Series race that was part of it, and just like had a blast. Like Hilary, Ellen, and I ran quite a bit of it together, and just wanted to go check out the scenery. And it was a beautiful day on the Gower, so it was a really, really fun weekend. I feel like we came away from it sort of understanding like the way you can combine these different worlds and create something that everybody wants from the experience. And in the evenings, they had like a DJ doing more of an electronic set on the main stage with all the lights and, you know, like all that. But then they also had tents with like an acoustic guitar based thing and some yoga. And then they had like the pub was in another circus tent, and that turned into this like raucous party with an Irish band. And I'm pretty sure it was like the largest audience that this band had ever had for any of their shows. Like they
Oh,
were
they
up
were
there
having
just
a
looking at
blast.
each other. Oh my God. They were just like, oh, do you guys see this? This is great. And people were just rocking out. And so it was just really fun. It was like you could make it whatever you wanted. And we both came away from the weekend again with an appreciation of community and the chance to connect with people in a very casual setting. Like, you know, in the morning you get up and you go to the coffee trucks and everyone's just sort of saying hi. And I just think like these are cool situations, and it's neat when you get the opportunity to put yourself in a place where it kind of like creates more community. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think the biggest conflict, she was telling you guys about scheduling conflict. It always coincided with Hard Rock, which is a week. Uh, you know, when I reference Hillary and I like really connecting and falling in love, it was during that week. It's there's like the week leading up to the Hard Rock 100, which is a big 100-mile race in the States. The week leading up to it, you get to just you get a whole bunch of people, just like whether they're a part of the race or not, they just hang out, tag a bunch of peaks and run in these beautiful, majestic San Juan Mountains. And that's where Hillary and I really connected and fell in love. So we, along with a host of our friends, we will make the drive out there, hang out, camp, and just run and bathe in rivers. And it's a lot of fun. And so that's been the biggest conflict. Like Theo and I have been talking for a while, and he's graciously invited and rolled out the red carpet for me, but I just couldn't. It's has so much sentimental meaning for both Hillary and I to be out there in Colorado. But this year we just decided, you know what, this thing, it's just like too good an opportunity to pass up. Plus, I've always wanted to visit the UK. Let's just take a year off from Hard Rock and go. And I'm so glad we did. To all of Hillary's points, just connecting with a community that is halfway around the world, but you're still, you know, you still have that love of the outdoors and trail running in common. And that's really all you need as a starting point. And then all these other things that they supplemented with, from wellness to movie nights to speakers to uh, live music, DJs, if you're into that thing, for, you know, probably the younger crowd, to like folk music and everyone just dancing in harmony in a tent, and, you know, the little conga lines that formed, and, you know, knocking back pints. Like it really had everything. And I swear to God, I'm not like paid to advertise them outside of the, you know, the week that we had there, but it really had something for everyone. And we saw everyone from, as you know, in their teens to in their 60s and 70s and possibly beyond. So it was such a fun few days there in South Wales, and getting to meet all these lovely people. And of course, the team at Love Trails were so welcoming and so gracious. And then capping it all off with this, you know, to get the whole UK European experience, watching a football match between Spain and London and England was was a blast too. So yeah, it just had a lot of everything. And yeah, we really soaked it in for all it was worth.
And you also managed to sample a full English breakfast at the Love Trails Festival.
More than one, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how you guys do it. It's there weren't a lot of green things on the plate, but like I said, it was really delicious. So yeah, I had it sparingly, but you know, we were on vacation. We're on a holiday, so why not?
It can serve its purpose. It can serve its purpose, especially if there's been a few pints the night before.
Can I come in? Can I come in with a thing that sort of, it comes sort of full circle and a wee bit of, I'm going to call it karma, but it's a nice thing. We never knew this until right now, but one of our previous guests, Derek Fish, completed Hard Rock for the first time this year.
Yep.
So I am now offering that Derek Fish was there representing you at Hard Rock this year. So thank you very much, Derek Fish, for
Yeah, I don't
representing
know
that.
Derek personally, but yeah, kudos to you. Did he finish?
He did. First Scotsman ever,
Oh,
I think, to finish it, I think.
wow. Yeah, I mean, that is, if you get a chance to go out there, I don't know if either one of you gentlemen have been to the San Juans in Colorado, but you have not only just the ruggedness and steepness of the mountains, but you are at proper elevation. I can't do the conversion into meters, unfortunately, but the town
okay, we
itself is
talking feet.
9,300 feet, and you hit 14,000 feet. Hilary can do the conversion for me, but there are many challenges, and then the weather, the proper mountain weather that you can encounter each afternoon. So kudos to you, Derek. That, I mean, just a finish, no matter what the time is a proper tip of the cap of your ability to endure.
Derek will be doing cartwheels.
He will be. I've just got to clarify. I think he was the second Scotsman to finish. I'm not quite sure who the first was, but just to put that out there so we can figure that one out. But yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for
Mhm.
that. Sorry, but I'm getting caught up in digressing with things, but I'm okay with that.
Oh, I know.
Going
Are
on.
we still jetting around the UK, John? Are we still? You visited our nation's capital, Edinburgh, on a real whistle-stop trip. I'm assuming.
Oh my god. Have you guys tried Dishoom?
The Indian
That was the
curry.
Yeah, that was the Indian restaurant.
The street, Indian street food, yeah, fantastic.
Well,
Is there one in Edinburgh?
Dishoom, yeah, the Dishoom in particular, I believe it's a chain. There's one in London and Edinburgh, and I'm sure a handful of other places, but it is on the higher end of Indian cuisine, as
Yep.
I'm coming to understand it. Long lines, like they don't even take reservations outside of like, what was it, babe, like 4 or 5 o'clock, and then after that you have to show up in person.
Yeah, we had a reservation for like 5 o'clock and then we missed
Yeah.
it because we were trying to check into our Airbnb, but we really wanted to go to Dishoom. So then we sucked it up and we're in line up for a while. But they're really smart. They like get you at the door and then they usher you downstairs to their bar. And then when you're down there, that's when you realize how many people are also down there waiting for their table with
Yeah.
their little number. But it's super fun and you have a cocktail and you just wait. And I think it took like just over an hour before we had a table. But yeah, it was a standout experience. It was, I feel like some of the best Indian food we've ever had. So that was.
But then Edinburgh, like specifically, or like as a whole, I was just like absolutely blown away, and I feel like I could do a week or two there alone because just how unique a city it is. Like just the history that you come in contact with, and you're walking through old cobblestones, and you of course you got the obligatory like bagpipe player, and it's touristy somewhat, understandably so, but I just my jaw hit the floor. It reminded me of, I don't know if either one of you guys watched the movie Inception, but the some of the design of the city just kind of reminded me of Inception. I don't know why, because it was just like so impossibly beautiful and unique. Like you're looking over and seeing just like these old castles and buildings that could be centuries old, and then you look to your left and there's like a McDonald's, or like like some of the modern places of the, and it just like had this like beautiful hybrid of like old and new, and the energy of that city and that town, and just like, yeah, we were walking around in amazement. Granted, it was at the tail end, so we were just like a little fatigued and a little like road weary, I guess, but I thought, like, I just like, it was like the perfect bookend to this amazing experience in the UK and Scotland in particular, that I like, for Edinburgh alone, I would love to go back and just like walk through, pop into some of the buildings and explore it a lot more.
We didn't even get to run around Arthur's Seat, which I was in Edinburgh maybe like 2009 or 10 with my cousins who live in that area. And it was back when I was just sort of a baby runner, but we did run around Arthur's Seat. And I remember it was like this beautiful 10K loop. And just like, that's a really cool part of the city. It's sort of like Central Park for Edinburgh, right? Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
very
So,
much. Yeah.
yeah, I know.
Got
We
to
totally
also,
could have spent more time.
got to also say, if you're back in Edinburgh, right on the edge of Edinburgh is the Pentlands Regional Park. That's where Jasmine Paris does her training. That's honestly phenomenal. You can have, there's whole different sorts of lengths of routes with different types of elevation that you can encompass. Next time you're here, give us a shout. We'll phone Jasmine and we'll arrange something.
Yeah.
So we can do that. We can do that.
If we can keep up, yeah.
Yeah. That's okay. That's okay. Now, can I be sort of segue for Hilary? I believe that, Hilary, you're also a host, co-host of a podcast. Do you want to speak about that a wee bit?
I am, yeah. I wear a couple different hats in my regular life, outside of the photography, and one of them is co-hosting the Trail Network podcast, which I started just under a year ago, so not that old. But we try to release weekly episodes, and I co-host it with Rachel Drake, Katie Asmuth, and Leah Yingling, who are all amazing, accomplished runners over here in the U.S. And I feel like all of them offer really, really interesting perspectives on running, life balance. Rachel is a physician as well as an Olympic time trial qualifying marathon runner and trail runner and a young mom. Katie is a nurse practitioner and a mom and a sponsor runner. And Leah, she's often on the mics at a lot of the live events in the US and does a lot of the kind of commentary and the race side of it, but then is also an incredible runner as well. So yeah, we have a lot of fun with it. We definitely like to talk to everybody, not just the front of the pack runners, but we love to just dive into kind of a wide gamut of experiences. And I actually just did an interview yesterday with Scott Jurek and Hella Sidibe, who is he's a runner in the US who's on a run streak that's, I think, like over 2,000 days, 2,500 days or something like that right now. And just going through their experience at Javelina 100, where Scott Jurek paced him for 40 miles of the race, and just kind of like that difference of perspective between the runner and the pacer during their race. So that's coming out next. But we've it's been a lot of fun, and I think just getting into the podcast world, which Billy knows very well and has been involved in for a long time, it was something that I wanted to take on, but then with all of our travel that we do, it felt really daunting to take on a podcast on my own. So I think we found a good balance with being able to share the workload a little bit, which I'm sure for you guys too is quite nice, right? Like it can be a lot to try to keep it going and bring that energy every week. And so yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
But just in general, and if I can jump in here, I do feel like there is an underrepresentation of female voices in media. And that's another, I don't know if you guys wanted to talk about it now or later, but that's another part of where I'm really proud of what Hilary's doing in with the Women's Trail Running Fund and creating this viral campaign of Here for the Women's Race, this like whisper that turned into a yell and like it became like such a cool thing to witness of like, yeah, like these female athletes should get equal time in the spotlight. And I think just by way of, I don't know if maybe we're just like looking at them as an afterthought, but there just isn't that focus right now. And it is a male dominated industry by a margin of 4-1 here in the States. So that's another aspect of Hilary's work. And what she's doing to amplify these voices and these stories, and I think the world could use more of that.
You're speaking to the right people. We are all for that, big champions of that. And here in Scotland specifically, I'm going to give a shout out to the Wild Heart Runners. Good friends of ours, Debbie Martin Kinsani and Karen Nichol, are the brains behind the Wild Heart Runners, who are championing the female cause. They also work with they're coaches, and they work with males as well, but they're championing the female cause and the female voice. And to give a shout out as well, I did this last couple of weeks actually, but Kaylee Webster and Vic Owens, also previous guests of our show, they both recently finished first and assist at the last person standing in Golspie at the Backyard Ultra. Things are changing. And the
Yeah.
guys, the guys better wake up because it's happening. The
I
females
think
are doing their thing. Yeah.
it starts with storytelling. I mean, that's a power of storytelling, and this is why we need more media people that are female so that they can properly represent these female stories. Like, I think and it'll take some time, but the power of storytelling, whether it's in podcast form, whether it's in video form, is how you create future generations of female trail runners and inspire this current generation of young girls to have people and role models to look up to. I think that's the power of storytelling, and this is why we need more women out there be like prop these, the Jasmine Parises, the Courtney DeWalters, or maybe some of the mid to back of the pack stories that may go unnoticed. Seek those stories out. And I think the more female storytellers we have out there, the more I think the sport will be lifted up.
Maybe you could drop Courtney a note and tell her to come and tell her story in Young Hearts Run Free, Billy. That would be fantastic. But also on that, you mentioned a very powerful phrase, here for the women's race. At the Lakeland 100 event in the summertime, Stephen and I were down there in the summer. Debbie Martin-Kinsani was running the Lakeland 100. I saw a photograph of Debbie at some time over the weekend with her son, and her son was wearing a t-shirt, white t-shirt, red font, here for the women's race. Hilary, do you want to say some more about that movement?
Yeah, it's been pretty incredible. Like Billy said, it sort of accidentally went viral. It was sort of born out of watching some of the live stream media coverage this spring, and it was specifically some of the UTMB races where it felt like the women weren't getting their stories told during the races as much as the men, and so there was a few of us that were sort of brainstorming ideas of like, well, how can we show that we really want to see these stories? And so we came up with this t-shirt campaign, which we launched at Western States, and people just went nuts for it. Like Corinne, Malcolm, and I had a few boxes of shirts printed up, and we were selling them out of the back of her truck. We didn't even make it out of the parking lot at Western States because people just wanted them. A lot of the like mail media, like it was really fun. It was just sort of like this huge conversation starter, and they sold out almost instantly. We were getting all these messages from people that were wanting to find them online, and that was really the birthplace of it all. And we sort of realized there was this big demand. And when I was at Love Trails Festival, I was actually able to connect with Sophie Power and with Trina Dawkins from Black Trail Runners. Sophie Power organizes she races and was very instrumental with UTMB changing their maternity policies. And so we've been able to assemble this team of women, sort of a global team of 10 women that are helping us form an advisory committee. And the goal with the Here for the Women's Race campaign is to create a fund. It's all nonprofit. The fund is going to give out creative grants to female storytellers to tell more stories about women. And to what Billy was saying before, sort of the idea is like you have to be able to have that representation. And I think the people that tell the stories matter. I think you get more diversity of perspectives when it's coming from the people that are looking for the stories, not just the people in front of the camera. And we talk a lot about finding more ways to make women feel welcome in races. And I think this is such a huge piece of it. So it's very exciting. It's become the Women's Trail Running Fund, or the WTF, which we like to cheekily call it. And it's a nonprofit. It's 100% of all of the funds that we've raised for this whole thing have gone back into these grants. And we are actually launching the grant applications today, which is exciting. So it's November 13th today. When the podcast comes out, the applications will be open until December 13th, so for 1 month. And we're giving away $25,000 in creative grants, and you can apply for a grant that's either $1,000, $5,000, or $10,000. And basically, we just want to enable women to tell some of these stories, and not just the front of the pack, but all these stories, and to really find ways to broaden the people in our sport through storytelling. So it's incredibly exciting. It's been a ride, like I didn't plan on starting a nonprofit organization like this in the middle of our busy season of summer. And it's certainly been this huge learning curve. We launched hoodies today, which are really fun, with the Here for the Women's Race. And then we have a trucker hat coming out in a few weeks. And yeah, just having a lot of fun with it and finding ways to keep people supporting the messaging, which is ultimately to raise money and be able to give out these grants. And as a female creative, like I've been in the industry for almost a decade now, and I've almost never worked with another female on a project. It's usually me and a bunch of guys. It's always that's the case. And so this has been something that I'm very passionate about, and I've looked for ways over the years. I've mentored other women into the sport on the media side, but I think this feels very tangible, and it's really cool to it's really cool to be part of and to just see it take on a life of its own. So go to hereforthewomensrace.com if you want to learn more.
You'll post a link to that in the show notes. We'll
Sure,
definitely
well.
do
Thank
that.
you
And
so much.
I love it, Hilary. You're a trailblazer, and I love that very much. Thank you for doing what
Yeah.
you're doing.
Thanks, guys.
Stephen, we've got time constraints, so let's
absolutely.
let's
So
rock on.
we're hurtling towards the end of the podcast. Before we've got a sort of couple of signature questions at the very end, but we want to find out what's next for this dynamic couple. What's on the near horizon and maybe the medium term horizon for you? Anything exciting coming up?
Well, let's see. The only really international trip we have coming up for the rest of the year is to take a actual proper holiday in Mexico for a few days, because we need like a hard reset away from phones, away from technology, because this summer and really this entire year, like from, we went to places like Mongolia, the aforementioned UK, to Italy, to Switzerland, France, and and Canada, her native country, and just like it's been a whirlwind. So we're looking forward to things like slowing down and being at home and taking care of our dog Charlie, and being with our family a bit more. Next year we haven't really planned too much out yet. We would like to, obviously, the summer's our busiest time. I mentioned Western states that we do the live broadcast for, which takes like months of, I guess, preparation and anticipation for that. But like our calendar somehow miraculously gets filled, whether with projects or with, as time allows, maybe a race or two that we'll do for ourselves. And I think at this point we wouldn't have it any other way, as long as we get to stay in this community, whether via work or for our personal ambitions. It is the best community in the world, the trail and ultra running community. So a lot of, I'm sure, 2025 will be spent in the mountains, whether for work or for play.
Very exciting. And we thankfully have a pretty good seat to watch your adventures pan out on your socials, on your YouTube, etc. So we'll have a close eye on you.
Yeah, I'm currently working on our Mongolia trip, which we could do an entire podcast about that place alone. But I'm looking. It's so much fun reliving what we experienced over there, and through all our travels. Like I still have a video on the Dolomites and another trip around the Tour de Mont Blanc, and it's just it's a very privileged life we get to lead.
Can I ask a really selfish question? Because we are in the midst, at the very start of our turning Japanese season. Have you ever had the privilege to set foot in Japan?
Japan is number one on my list. I don't know about you, babe, but Japan is like, from a food, trail running, and like skiing even, we're like recent skiers, or at least I am. That's our off season like passion. Japan is high on my list, and I can't wait to visit there.
Okay.
If you go in March, you can film Stephen running the marathon.
I'm sure. I don't know if the drones would, work in the city centre, the CBD in Tokyo.
Yeah.
But that's. I was going to ask for food recommendations. You see, such as our.
I don't think you can go wrong there.
No,
really
it seem
don't. Yeah.
even the convenience stores seem high-end food
Yeah.
options.
Yeah. Just
Yeah.
I'm telling you, go to TikTok and look
Oh,
up where
yes.
you are, food recommendation, and you'll get tons.
Absolutely, totally.
Mhm.
Omakase is my current sort of TikTok trend. Just a coffee
Yeah.
omakase. So there you go. One to look up. Thank you. Oh, right. This is on to the very important and serious questions now, which we ask each and every guest who comes onto the podcast. The first one is around an entry into our dialect dictionary, which is your favourite word, phrase, could be from where you call home, something you've picked up along the way, something you've picked up in the UK. Hilary, no pressure. Sorry, no pressure.
Oh man. Yeah, I know, right? I mean, I don't know. I try to think of my Canadianisms. I definitely get called out on it living in LA, and I don't think I have an accent, but I'm told I have, words that are kind of funny down here. But the biggest thing that Billy and I argue about, which is very much a American versus Canadian and British way, is how you say the word bean. In the US, you say I've been here. Like you never say been. It's like I've been here, I've been there. And it drives me insane because you don't say, I've seen this, you say, I've seen this. And so it's a huge point of contention. And it's probably the biggest thing that I get called out on is that I say the word being everywhere.
But I am on your side from a pragmatic point of view. Like American English makes no sense sometimes.
It makes no sense. No. So it is funny. I feel like I do have the proper like British background in me. So there are definitely times where I hear the Americans talking and I'm just like, no, you're hurting my ears. But yeah, I don't know if I have a particular phrase, but I just have kind of weird words, and I think that's the Canadian in me will always have that.
Yeah,
Perfect.
mine's simple. I'm in LA, kind of I wasn't born here, but I spent most of my life in LA, so I'm just a dude guy. Like dude, dude. Yeah. I got
Yes.
nothing better for you.
That's absolutely perfect, dude.
Yeah. I'm a man. I say man. Man.
Yeah.
Similar to dude.
Yeah.
And I think the Scots would be on board with the bean, most definitely.
Right, exactly. You're not saying
I'm
bin.
team Bean too. Like it makes sense,
Bean.
but it's still weird hearing it. Yeah. It
Yeah.
makes no sense.
There's a hashtag, Team Bean.
Yeah. That's a t-shirt. Team Bean. There you go.
Totally. If you know, you know.
Oh man, thank you. John.
Yeah. Our final question for you, a musical one for a song each. We are currently opened up Young Hearts Run Free LaBuff Buff Collection Volume 9. That's our official playlist name for this season. The reason it's called 9 and not 12 is we never started this till season 4. So that's our season 3. So that's where we are. So it's an eclectic mix. What song or track, Hilary, would you like to gift to our Young Hearts Run Free listeners?
I'm over here trying to like quickly look at it to see what the vibe is. Okay, are we talking like a classic, like a this is my running mantra song, or could it be something that we're just listening to now?
There's only one song that
Entirely
matters
up
right now, Hilary, and that's the song that's in your heart. What one are you going to go with?
Okay, I'll give you two. I'll give you my classic. This is my running theme song that I identify with, and then I'll give you my like recent earworm. So the classic for me would be Queen, Don't Stop Me Now. That's definitely my like, if I'm low in a race, I get my air drums out and I'm running down the trail yelling, Don't Stop Me Now at the top of my lungs, looking like a crazy person. And so that would probably be my like ultimate theme song. But a recent earworm, I've been really listening to a lot of Orville Peck. He is actually Canadian who lives in LA, sort of a like blues Elvis-y type of singer, but he has a song with Kylie Minogue called Midnight Ride. And if you listen to it, you'll kind of get it. It's got a great beat. It'll make you want to run and like find a groove. So that was the one that came to mind for just like my fun pump me up song now.
I don't know the second one by Orville
You
Peck.
do?
No,
No
I
way.
don't.
Oh,
No,
you don't?
sorry. I
Oh,
don't
okay.
know it. So that's definitely
I
going
was
in.
gonna say.
But
There you go.
who are we to deny Freddie Mercury a place
Thank you.
on the playlist.
I know. That's why I couldn't choose. I just
It's-
couldn't do it.
And as soon as you hear the opening bars of Don't Stop Me Now, you're in a good place. So
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you,
Try
Hilary.
it. Yep.
Having a
Billy.
good time. Having a good time.
Exactly. Billy, let's close this up. What are you going to add in?
Well, she got 2, so I'm gonna say 2.
Why not?
So my go-to, and this is when you don't want to play the song at the beginning or in the middle of an ultra marathon. If you want to pop this on when hay's about to be in the barn, as we like to say here in the States. Maybe you guys have that phrase too. And you just want to lock in. And for me, it is a song by Fatboy Slim called Right Here, Right Now. And it's just that repeated in the chorus, right here, right now, right here, right now. Dun-dun-dun-dun. And it's just like something about that song just like keeps me engaged in the moment. Doesn't have me looking too far ahead, too far in the rear, but it like that song fires me up like none other. So if I were to pick one out of the entire catalog of music I could select, that would be one. And then two, I'm gonna maybe suck up to some of the Scottish people out there. I believe I'm almost positive, like 90% sure that this is a Scottish band, but it's one of my favorite bands, and it was a playlist on our road trip. A frequent guest on our playlist is a band called Travis.
Oh, yeah.
And they have a song, and I believe it's like their encore. We're actually going to go see them in February in Canada. So, but I've been a fan of theirs for a while. The Man Who is one of my favorite albums of all time. But prior to that, they have a song called All I Want to Do Is Rock. And it's just like this crescendo, this beautiful crescendo. And something about that just like fires me up like none other. So Travis, All I Want to Do Is Rock will definitely have to go on my recommendation and hopefully your playlist.
I know both of these songs. I know both of them. Travis are a Glasgow-based band, fantastic, and
Yeah.
great supporters of new music and new bands as well. So brilliant. You'll be,
Yeah, they've also got a funky range of gifts.
yeah, they do.
Travis gifts that are always on your WhatsApp or whatever you. But if you
Yeah.
look for Travis gifts, they've made a really
We'll have
fun.
to look those up.
Yeah, they're good. But I know, yeah, all I Want to Do Is Rock is a classic. I've seen Travis on too many occasions live, which has been a real treat.
I've only seen their concert DVD, and it's been a long time coming, and they're finally going to
Love
be
them.
in a place where the stars will align for me to see them live. And I think he's just such a great front man, and the whole band is great. So yeah, I can't wait.
They're also very engaging with the audience. You know, it's
Yeah.
almost like you're on stage with them. Absolutely
Yeah.
fantastic. Really,
Oh, I
really
can't
good.
wait.
So,
Wow.
Hilary.
They're all in. All 4 songs are in
Yeah.
the playlist. I'm the curator of the playlist. They're in.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely, most definitely. Hilary and Billy, thank you so much. This has been an absolutely phenomenal chat. It feels like 5-10 minutes we've been chatting, and we've done a whirlwind tour of the UK and further afield, and we've spoken about the passion of running, photography, storytelling, food. We've covered a lot of ground. Absolutely
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, and if
Phil-
you're listening to this and you're in the UK, like telling you, like you guys live in a very privileged place. Get out there, put on some Travis, and hit the road and visit some of these lovely places.
Brilliant. A little disclaimer, if you've never been to Billy Yang's YouTube channel and you're going in for the first time, maybe cancel everything for the next 72 hours because you're going to be there. It's a rabbit hole. Believe me, there's loads of good stuff in there. My favourite one is, and I think a lot of people's favourite, is a film called The Why. Absolutely phenomenal storytelling in there. But I'm going to hand over to Stephen to close us off. But thank you so much for your time. Really enjoyed that. Thank you.
Yeah, just really echoing what John said. Thanks so much for giving up your time, speaking to us, recounting that trip to the UK. We hope to see you back here on these shores before too long. If you are back, please look us up, give us a shout. We can act as tour guides or even just share a pint with you. It would be an absolute privilege. Thanks so much. keep doing what you're doing and keep championing everything that you're doing. It's a real inspiration for us.
Thank you, guys.
so
Thanks
much,
for having
Stephen and
us.
John. You guys are very kind.